his authenticity. There's a certain president who suddenly discovered the inability of misspelling and mispronunciation when he might have realized that enhanced his perceived authenticity of a recent political arena. It was impressive watching that skill set develop. If maybe Covfefe was just a Twitter slip up, or maybe not. Well, maybe Trump understood this is because Trump grew up in the construction community, and you trust it's a strength. You can take what's otherwise a limitation and make it into a strength because, yeah, I screw up with words. Yeah, I screw up with things, but it's because I'm honest, unlike Binger. And that's what he made clear. And that's where the contrast could not be greater between the two. And I thought that was very effective in defense presentation. I mean, at this point, only a dishonest, rogue, runaway jury convicts Kyle of anything. So the only question is whether it's going to be acquittals or mistrials, and it's only be mistrials if bad jurors snuck on the jury.
In order for if there's an 11 not guilty, 1 guilty, technically that's a hung jury. Is there recourse for the judge to say we're not retrying this?
Nope.
Okay, so it just takes one stubborn person to get a hung jury and then result in a new trial. It's not like if it's only one, they can sort of override them and say, okay.
That's why this case always had an unusually high mistrial risk unless you were very careful in jury selection.
Are there, I'm not asking for myself, are there betting odds on this? Is there a market for the outcome of this trial?
I had people asking me that. No, there's not. There's the only one there's any betting market on is Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes. There's on whether she'll be convicted of fraud.
Okay, and I, on a civil matter, I think betting is less of a sin than on a life and death matter. Quite literally,
her case is criminal, though.
Well, yes, but sorry, on a non-violent criminal case, I think it's less of a moral sin. Yeah,
there were odds on the OJ case. I remember because I won money on betting and going to get acquitted, and there was money on the Snipes case. There are odds on the Snipes case. Hypothetically speaking, the defendant in the case may have bet on his own acquittals and made a nice little chunk of cash, hypothetically speaking.
Okay, now here's the question everyone is asking, because I sometimes just can't believe what I'm seeing in real time. Binger with his little Binger finger on the trigger. I don't know. I didn't know that he was aiming the gun at the jury. If I'm in the jury...
And his finger was on the trigger. The trigger. I mean, where did he learn gun safety? Alec Baldwin?
I mean, that's what I was going to say. In the context of Alec Baldwin, and even not in the context of Alec Baldwin, that's not a game you play. And if I'm in the jury, I appreciate that I'm neurotic and I appreciate that I overreact. I would have been exquisitely angry. I once had someone point a gun at me in a joking manner, and it was border. I mean, I know it's assault technically. I did not like it, even though they thought they knew everything about guns.
Binger was trying to set a trap for Richards, and to his credit, he did not take it.
Binger
also got the advice not to repeat the N-word. Credit to him for doing that too.
But hold on, what trap do you think he was trying to set by having that gesture in particular?
Because what does it highlight? That pointing the gun at someone is scary and threatening. He wanted Richards to highlight how scary and threatening it is to point a gun at someone, thus playing up the provocation theory that Binger had. So Binger was teasing out, trying to tempt Richards into saying, look at how crazy this was. He just pointed a gun at you. That's Binger's argument. As to why that would be provocative if Kyle did it. Okay. To his credit, Richards did not take the bait.
Fantastic. That is 4D level chess right there, because I didn't even think those two steps ahead. But I guarantee
he's a sleazy, swarmy, but smart prosecutor.
Well, I guarantee you the jury did not like having a gun, even if they were told it's clear, cold gun, especially given the Alec Baldwin.
The subtextual message was, you better bring back the verdict we want. I mean, you could, and when that's re-enhanced by the way Sauerkraus, whatever his last name is, how he handled his rebuttal, that seemed to be the argument. They were arguing to their position, you better go in there and you better hold out and you better do what the government says, because we're the ones ultimately with all the guns.
I love what you just said. In fact, had Richards, for all of the encouragement, object, had he objected then, Binger would have then said, look, it is so much an assault on your safety that just pointing what you know to be an unloaded gun is an act of provocation. Richards didn't take the bait. Binger pointed a gun with his finger on the trigger at the jury. They reacted internally probably the way any reasonable person would, and it's not going to be to Binger's favor. Did Binger arguably commit a crime?
It didn't work the way he had hoped it would.
Well,
that's because, again, Richards did, I think, his best version he's ever done. And I think Binger did not expect that because Binger knows Richards' reputation and probably presumed that he would take the bait on some of those things, and Richards didn't.
Is there any plausible argument that Binger actually committed a crime? Because someone sent me or tweeted a copy of a statute which said that it's unlawful to point a gun at anybody.
It is. Yes. Yeah. So it's added to the litany of crimes and constitutional violations and ethical rule violations that little Binger has committed in this case.
Wow. Robert, I hope everyone in the chat appreciates the insight of that response. That's a gambit that Binger took that did not pay off. And now I absolutely think you're 1,000% right that Richards not objecting to that or not reacting. It was probably the best non-reaction of the.
Instead, it ends up making little Binger look like a nut. What's this nut job doing pointing a gun at me? What the heck? It enhances that's who these people are. And of course, it became a permanent meme. So, there's so many memes from this trial. Rekieta had a fun one of he had Kyle pointing at the screen, and it was a picture, I think, of us or me or one of the other. Oh, yeah. I was like, because it's from the pointing at the screen stuff. So there's so many of those. And then somebody did the hocus pocus out of focus. They redid that shot and they put little hats on sauerkraut and little fairy wizard hats on Binger. And had little fairy dust coming off the TV screen. So a lot of good stuff with that. But here's a case where the court of public opinion, I think, really mattered because all of that collective effort and collective help over the weekend of what Darth Crypto and others did, ultimately that information and intel got back to the defense team, and Richards critically incorporated it to gut what was going to be Binger's core argument in close. And in the end, he really didn't have it. And so that's why he had to go to more desperate lengths with stunts like pointing an AR-15 at the jury with his finger on the trigger, not off the trigger like it's supposed to be, on the trigger.
And not off the trigger like Kyle Rittenhouse's finger was off the trigger when he had his gun pointing at the gun. I mean, I saw that even with my layperson eyes. I didn't see that his finger was on the trigger in real time, but I couldn't. We didn't see that image from the angle that we had from the live broadcast, and I certainly didn't know that he pointed it at the jury.
Oh, one other addition.
Yeah.
Wonderful little phraseology. Probably came from, this is not naturally a sort of Richards thing, but it was still great that he did, which was saying that, Kyle Rittenhouse was entitled like any other Kenosha citizen to be unmolested by Mr. Rosenbaum.
Well, he was definitely alluding at the fact that Rosenbaum had selected Rittenhouse to pursue because he looked young and weak. And it's
true. And that's an argument that I was thrilled to see him make because there were about a dozen or so arguments, 6 critical ones that some of us had really wanted made, and Richards made them all. And so complete credit to him because, I mean, sometimes, like I say, ego can be a block or you can live in a bubble during your defense. He clearly incorporated a lot of information, and it led to the best ever defense I think he's ever given.
I'm going to read this one because it's a legit question, but this is sort of one of Scott Adams' loser think techniques is you should have done that yesterday type thing, which is something you can always say quite literally. But why not request dismissing those obvious charges before today? Is it just to throw the prosecution off their game?
It's because what the judge said was, until the close of evidence, I didn't know whether, in fact, they had a short barrel rifle or not. He made that clear. He was like, theoretically, there was nothing in the indictment itself that precluded that being a short barrel rifle. And so there wasn't sufficient allegations from the probable cause statement itself to rule that possibility out. By the end of the close of evidence, it was clear he never had a short barrel rifle. And so it was the prosecution's bad faith to continue to pursue it when they knew that, but the court can't take remedy until the close of evidence.
I'm going to say Richards did really good today, and I'm going to bring up this one. Marty McGraw, Mr. Barnes, I respect your integrity in praising Richards. A lot of people get the misrepresentation because when someone has confirmation bias, they're going to look at Robert and say he is always critical of other lawyers and then totally ignore all of the lawyers he has been overtly praising. Harmeet Dillon, for example, Sidney Powell before the Kraken, and any number of other attorneys who Robert overtly, actively, and regularly praises. And he was critical of Richards for legit reasons, critical of a situation for legit reasons. But Robert is not. I mean, I know you, Robert. We've known each other for a couple of years now. Not too proud. It's not a question of ego with you. It's a question of strategy. And so
completely. And I just wanted the best Richards to show up. And my hope was that public criticism could collectively get feedback that he could then incorporate to be the best version of himself. And he was today. So, I mean, all I ever cared about was Kyle being acquitted. I didn't care about nothing else, zero else. He's an innocent kid being railroaded by a corrupt prosecutor, period, and by a corrupt, politically prejudiced media. He wouldn't be here by any honest prosecutor, by any honest press. And that's the only reason why he's here. That's all I ever wanted. And so it was always risky to say anything because you can be critiqued. I didn't want to say anything that would actually undermine the defense. Just wanted the best Richards to show up, and today he did.
It was great because you look at Richards today. His presentation, he looked like not a cranky uncle. He looked like your uncle that you love, but who's a hard ass. And it came through. It came through in terms of honesty. Okay, fine, everyone.
And his passion came through. He deeply believes Kyle is innocent, and that finally came through. He's like, this is BS. This is nonsense. I mean, I think he said that. Actually, those exact words multiple times. Go at Binger for being the fraud that he is. Bring out all the critical, essential evidence. Make sure the jury knows how passionately you're committed to this kid. And a very good close. There were no winners here, but it was complete injustice to make Kyle the loser here.
Do you think the jury being escorted twice out of the room during second closing for prosecutor hurt or helped the notion that the prosecutors were trying to cheat?
Oh, it definitely helped. To have the judge interrupt twice and have to send him out because the prosecutors are up to more shenanigans, it helps the defense.
Chicanery.
Exactly.
By the way, I'm not jumping on the bandwagon of the.
One addendum.
Go for it.
This is an I and